I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports. Welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports Show. It is Tuesday morning and time for our wavering video once again, where we'll give you all the top picks for your waiver wire weeks in week 9. And I'm joined again by Logan Glaser, contributing writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports. Logan, thanks again for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff. There's a lot of breakdown this week. We got the trade deadline in a couple of hours. We're filming this Tuesday morning, so if you're watching this since after, a lot of moves could have happened since then. We had a monstrous week in week 8 from a lot of fantasy performers. Got several multi-touchdown players, so a lot of breakdown with that.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to mention that as well, and you beat me to the punch, but you're correct. The trade deadline is going to happen in a couple hours after, probably after you see this. So keep an eye on that. Definitely could be some more moves to make at that point. There could be a lot of movement. It's kind of rare in the NFL for trades, but it seems like it's happening a little more and more these days. So that's kind of exciting, right?
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors that always swirl around, but for football especially, it doesn't seem like that many players actually get traded around the deadline, but never know each year.
Yeah, and then the other big thing, in my opinion, is the buys this week. There are 6 teams on a buy. I mean, that's rough. I'm going to read them. The Cleveland Browns, Dallas Cowboys, Denver Broncos, New York Giants, Pittsburgh Steelers, and San Francisco 49ers. So those are some really good teams. I mean, no Saquon Barkley, no Christian McCaffrey. The Cowboys are off, so a lot of good fantasy options there. CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott. So it's a tough week a little bit on waivers.
For sure. Yeah, there definitely has to be some options to go out there and pick up. So,
and I hate to say it, we'll get into this, but I don't think there's a lot of great options out there this week. Do you?
No, not really. No, we barely had any injuries this past week. That's usually injuries is where you can really make the difference up in the waiver wire. And this year, for the most part, players have stayed mostly healthy. There's been a few big injuries throughout the season, like Javonte Williams, a couple minor injuries with like Swift, but he should be back and looking good to go. So,
yep.
Let's break down
All
some
right,
players.
let's get into this. Let's give the users some options here for this week. So let's start at the QB spot. Who do you like at QB in the waiver wire?
Yeah, QB at the waiver wire, I'm going with Taylor Heineke. So Heineke's only 22% owned, and he's a gamer for Washington. I think they might roll with him over Wentz, even when Wentz gets healthy. We saw kind of during the offseason a lot of QB switch positions, but all those QBs are kind of on the bench now with Wentz. He's coming back from an injury, but I think they'll stick with Heineke. You also got Baker Mayfield, who's benched now, Matt Ryan, who's benched. So several QBs that were on the turn during free agency and being traded are on the bench. But I like Heineke. He's going up against Minnesota this week, who ranks 24th in pass defense. Heineke put up 26 fantasy points last week versus Indy, including that game-winning drive to get McLaurin down on the 1 and punched it in. So I really like him this week against a rough secondary for Minnesota.
Yeah, I like Heineke too. He was one of my 2 choices at QB. The other one is Andy Dalton. So Dalton, he seems to have taken hold of that New Orleans starter's job. I know Jameis Winston's probably been healthy enough to play, and they're sticking with Dalton, and he's played well the last couple games. He scored 2 touchdowns without turning the ball over. Last week, he had 6 touchdowns his last 2 games. I think that offense is finally coming around. Looked really good last week. They're getting Alvin Kamara involved, and Dalton's going to be starting. He's available in 77% of leagues. Again, 6 teams on a bye. You might need a streaming quarterback. I would consider using him this week. So Andy Dalton's my pick at QB. Let's move on to the running back spot now, Logan. How about a couple running back options out there for users?
Yeah, both of mine are going to be based off of if these players get traded. So one is Deon Jackson. He's 25% owned for the Colts. So this is basically if Nyheim Hines gets traded, which his name has come up a lot during the trade block. So keep an eye out for that this afternoon. But Deon Jackson played game and a half basically as a starter for the Colts so far. He had 13.1 points and then 28.1, and he's looked electric out of backfield when he's given the opportunity for Colts. He's had 14 receptions in those 2 games, so he's a dual threat on the ground and through receiving. So I really like him. So if Nyheim Hines gets traded, look for Deon Jackson to step up into that role, especially with Jonathan Taylor kind of struggling. He's kind of battling an injury these past couple of weeks, so we'll see if he stays healthy. But he was banged up during that last game. And the second one is another trade bait is Ernest Johnson. So Kareem Hunt might be on the trade block as well. So more talk has been involved around Hunt being traded from maybe like a fourth rounder. Several different teams have interest in him, but Ernest Johnson would step up into that number 2 role in Cleveland. And he excelled last year when he had the opportunity with Chubb and Hunt both injured. He put up 22 and 25 last year in the 2 games that he started, 5.3 yards per carry and over 100 carries in 2021. So I really like him in that backup role if Kareem Hunt gets traded.
I like Ernest Johnson. I watched him last night. He's an impressive back. It's kind of the shame he's in the situation he is because he doesn't get the chances. But man, good looking back. So hopefully maybe that Hunt trade happens and Johnson has some value for fantasy teams. I like that call. All right, my 2 picks. My first one is Kenyan Drake. So this is a guy that a lot of people dropped because Gus Edwards emerged as the starter. But now Gus Edwards is banged up again, has a hamstring injury, up in the air to play this week. So I think that gives Drake value once again. And Drake's actually played pretty well with his chances the last couple of weeks, 16 plus fantasy points, 2 of his last 3 games. He can produce in that role in that offense, and he's available in about 40% of leagues on our side as well. So Drake's out there, could be a help this week. Again, a lot of teams on a bye. He could be starting, so I'd go grab him if you're looking for some running back help. My next one is Caleb Huntley, the rookie running back for the Atlanta Falcons. He's actually splitting work with Tyler Algier pretty much straight down the middle, and Huntley's played better the last couple games. He ran 16 times for 91 yards last week. He has double-digit carries 3 of 5 games. Again, getting a lot of work and a run-heavy offense. Cordarrelle Patterson, now he's nearing a return. So if he returns, it could even be this week. Huntley's value goes way down. I still think he'll get some carries, but keep an eye on that. But if Patterson's out once again, I like Huntley as a streaming option, available in 88% of leagues as well. Again, very run-heavy offense. Huntley's going to get some chances in that backfield. Let's move on to receiver now, Logan. How about a couple receiver options for this week?
Yeah, number 1, I'm going with KJ Osborne. So he's going up against Washington, who ranks 24th in defending wide receivers. My beloved tight end Irv Smith Jr. is out for probably about a month. It's sounding like he hasn't had the greatest start, but he's got a couple touchdowns. But KJ Osborne should step up now and be that number 3 option in the pass offense with Minnesota, and they put up tons of points, usually involved in high-scoring games. Osborne has received 5+ targets in the last 3 games. I expect him to step up into an even bigger role for them. And the next one is Rondell Moore. So it kind of surprised me how low owned Rondell Moore was. Only 55% owned so far. He's going up against Seattle. You got Marquise Brown, who's going to be out for the next couple of weeks. So he's going to really step up into the number 2 wide receiver role. A lot of people thought he was going to have no value with Hopkins coming back and Brown, but now that Brown's out, he still has that wide receiver 2 role and has had that for basically his entire season, even though he missed the first couple of weeks. But last week he had 7 receptions, 92 yards and a touchdown. So I really like that, especially against a Seattle defense this week. I expect that to be a high scoring game as well.
I actually think the return of DeAndre Hopkins helps more because it gives him a little more room to get open in those seconds.
For sure.
And I played your boy Irv Smith over Greg Dulcich last week. That was a mistake. Great matchup, but I thought he was.
It was.
Didn't go well. Oh well. At least he didn't lay a goose egg for me. He got some points. All right, my top 2 receivers for the waiver wire this week. My first one's Terrace Marshall with the Carolina Panthers. He's starting now because Robbie Anderson got traded. He had 9 targets last week. He caught 4 of those for 87 yards. I don't know how it's possible, but that offense has gotten better with Christian McCaffrey gone and PJ Walker starting. So maybe they got something going. They figured out a way to get this offense to click somehow. And Marshall could be a benefactor the rest of the season. He's going to get a lot of chances. He's starting. He's available in 95% of leagues as well, so he's out there in a lot of them. He's been hyped the last couple of years and hasn't really lived up to it. So maybe he's finally ready to break out. We'll see. And he's out there in a lot of leagues. So if you want to take a chance, I'd give him a look. My next one is Josh Palmer. Another guy kind of fits the same mold as you were talking about, being surprised about a player being unowned in so many leagues. And you're talking about Rondell Moore. I feel the same way about Josh Palmer. He's 46% owned, so he's available in about 54% of leagues. And Mike Williams is hurt. He's going to miss some time. Palmer caught 9 passes his last game. He has 3 games this year with 13+ fantasy points, plays in a pass-heavy offense. He's going to be starting in the next few weeks, and I think he's a great pickup. Again, he's available in 54% of leagues, so if you're looking for receiver help and he's out there, I think he's a really good pickup for all you fantasy owners. All right, tight end, Logan. Last position to get to. Who do you like at tight end?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the tight end that you did not start, and that's Greg Dulcich. So he's 46%, 48% owned. He's had 3 games on his rookie season so far that he's kind of been starting for Denver. Those games, he's got 12.4, 11.1, and 12.7. Those are very consistent numbers, especially from a rookie tight end. He's gone up looking for Russell Wilson. He looks to Dulcich. If you watch that game, he basically had a drive that he just threw to Greg Dulcich the entire drive. And so I really like that for Dulcich moving forward, especially with them establishing more chemistry.
Definitely. I like Dulcich a lot. We've been hyping him the last few weeks on here. Still not even owned on 50% of our sites, 50% of our leagues. I think that changes, especially after last week. My tight end is Isaiah Likely with the Baltimore Ravens. Mark Andrews banged up, hurt his shoulder last week. He had a knee injury. He's kind of up in the air again to play this week. So if that happens, he doesn't play. I think Likely is a top 10 fantasy tight end in this offense. He caught 6 passes for 77 yards and a touchdown his last game when Andrews was banged up. So I think he has a huge ceiling, could be a really good play. If you own Andrews, I almost think it's a smart play just to add him regardless. But if you don't own Andrews and you're looking for a tight end for this week, I'd consider picking him up. He's available in 89% of leagues. Rashad Bateman also hurt as well, could be out a while. So maybe Likely plays even if Andrews is able to play. So I think he's definitely a good ad for fantasy owners. All right, we like to give everybody a streaming defense for the week, Logan. It's a strategy both you and I like to use. So talk about a streaming defense you think is a good option for week 9.
Yeah, for week 9, I'm going to be streaming Arizona Cardinals defense. So they're facing Seattle. And like I said, I expect this to be a high scoring game. So it kind of depends on your league rules. But like with our money league rules, points don't play a huge factor. What mainly plays a factor in getting points for your defense is sacks, turnovers, and that's exactly what Arizona does. They lead all of NFL in defensive touchdowns so far on the season with 4. So I expect them to get after Geno Smith and force some turnovers. Again, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, but I really like Arizona defense with turning the ball over with Seattle's offense.
All right, I like that call. Again, know your league rules. That's another good point as well, because some of these scoring rules are all different, and you need to know what favors your scoring. My pick for this week is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're available in about 51% of leagues, so over half the leagues on our site. I really like their pass rush. They had 3 sacks last week, multiple sacks, 3 games. They get after it. They got some guys. Walker, the rookie, really does a good job of getting after the QB. They play Las Vegas this week, who's a mess right now, offensively, especially through the air. I mean, Devontae Adams had just 1 catch last week. I know Josh Jacobs is playing well, but I don't like that offense right now. I think Jacksonville could be a good start in this matchup, get some sacks, maybe force a turnover or 2. So they're my option for the streaming defense for week 9. All right, Logan, that's the wavering video for this week. Thanks again for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff.
Good luck to everybody in week 9. This has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports.
This has been Logan Glaser from RealTime Fantasy Sports.
Have a great day, everyone.